I'm sure everyone in this room has dealt with a difficult situation at some point in our lives, am I correct?
Yeah.
But it's not that difficult, the situation that defines us. It's how we deal with that difficult situation. So my story starts June 2017, the day before Canada Day long weekend, Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I get a call from my wife, Leslie. She's crying on the other line, which is odd because in 12 years together, she has never called me crying. So she goes, "Chris, there's something wrong with the baby." I'm out. I'm gone. I literally leave my office, chair spinning. I get to her office. I pick her up. We go home. We pack a weekend bag. That's going to be an important piece of information for later. We rush down to Toronto for an urgent consult at Mount Sinai. We get there. As I said, it's Friday before the long weekend. Prenatal ward is an absolute ghost town. The doctor on call is delivering a complex set of twins. So Leslie and I wait from 7 p.m. till 2 a.m. When we finally get in, it's a 2-hour ultrasound. They tell us that it's something to do with the heart, but they have to consult with sick kids in the morning to be able to tell us with certainty what the problem was. So the next day, Dr. Edgar Yagi, who is the chief fetal cardiology imaging at Sick Kids, comes over in his street clothes because he was serendipitously at Sick Kids while on sabbatical, comes over, does an echo at Mount Sinai in his street clothes, and instantly diagnoses Everett with Epstein's anomaly. It gives us two choices. One, let nature take its course and Everett would die in a week or two. Or two is carry on with a tricky, difficult, and at that point, and still almost experimental course of treatment that didn't have any guarantees of Everett surviving. We made the easy but not simple choice to fight for Everett, and that kicked off a series of events that involved us commuting to
You got it, baby. You got
No, I said no. That was my alarm. That was my alarm, Connor. But thank you for the height. Every 2 days, go to Sick Kids for an echo and a follow-up. Walk right up the street to Mount Sinai for an echo and a follow-up. And so every second day, we were in a hospital for 8 hours. For the first 2 weeks, we were living in Vaughan, so you can imagine that traffic twice a day on top of everything else. For the second 4 weeks, we lived right downtown, Yonge and Grosvenor, in a 2-bedroom apartment that was funded by a philanthropic family out of Mount Sinai for families that need the support, that are from out of town. So for 6 weeks, we carried on like this. Everett, which brings us to game day. Everett is born via C-section, open heart surgery at birth. Leslie was then wheeled across the street back to Mount Sinai for recovery. I waited for the news, got the news, was told that the heart surgery was a success, but that the lungs were in severe trouble because of how big the heart was in the chest cavity and how little room the lungs had to develop. So once I finally got cleared, and Everett got cleared for me to go in and see him, I went in, I looked at him, he was covered, had lines in him, he was intubated, which means he was on oxygen support. He was on a heart-lung bypass called ECMO, so his heart and his lungs were not functioning as a machine doing the work for them. And he was on dialysis, which was functioning as his liver. He had all these lines, he was on all these meds, and I just looked at him and just felt so hopeless. The only thing I could do is lean into the nurse, get as much information as I possibly could so that I can attack this thing head on. So for a month he was in the cardiac critical care ward, which means that he was on one-on-one care with a nurse. A month later he went up to 4D, which is a long-term ward. After 3 months we were back home. He was discharged from the hospital. He, at 7, we went back and forth with a couple of complications. 7 months he has a second open heart surgery, and he'll have a third open heart surgery likely around the end of next year to finalize his new heart physiology. Now, he's on cruise control right now, which is good. He only has half of a heart and will forever, but he is on cruise control. He's stable, he's hitting milestones. I tell you guys this story because I want to set a stage. Back to the start of my conversation, I'm sure we would all agree that this is an absolutely shitty situation, completely terrible, and one that nobody would ever dream about participating in or would even wish upon their worst enemy. And Leslie and I had every excuse in the book to back off, to shelter ourselves, to let ourselves go, to give into the darkness, let it consume us. But that wouldn't do anything for us or for Everett. We needed to be there for Everett so that he could have the support that he needs and draw, even though he was not aware of what was going on. He was so sedated that he couldn't open his eyes, but he needed that strength and that emotional support from us to fight that fight that he needed to be. So us being anything less than the strongest version of ourselves would be doing him a disservice and doing us a disservice. So what we did is we leaned in on each other and we found outlets. I started really leaning into running and obstacle course racing. Leslie found me an obstacle course racing facility that I went to every single day. 2 hours a day was like a block of time that I needed to just go, sweat out the demons, leave it all in the course, and just kind of use that as an opportunity to recenter, re-energize, refocus so that I could be who I needed to be for both Leslie and Everett. And that's my thesis. I mean, we all go through hard times. It's inevitable. It's going to happen often in our lives. But what we have to remember is that when we are presented with a difficult situation, we have 2 choices. We have 1, let it consume us, let us use it as an excuse, and we can crumble and break down, or we can use it as an opportunity to grow and develop as human beings and actually come out on the other side better than the version that we went into this tunnel with. Myself, I use this opportunity as a kind of a magnifying glass to look at myself, and I tell myself that life is too short to be anything but happy. I stared death in the face in my son for months, and you have to chase what makes you happy, and not only that, we should be dedicating our lives to making the world happier by being beacons of good and positivity and hope that just makes not only our community but the world at large a better place. And when you get presented with that choice, we have to make the right choice. Do we want to be destroyed, or do we want to be upgraded? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves and make every decision moving forward in service of that decision. Thank you.